I am the president of the Falcon Robotics team, Team 4087. We're an FRC team. And this is going to be our outreach and media presentation along with Team Spider. Madeline, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, hello, my name's Madeline. I'm from Team Spider. We're from San Diego, California, or Poway, California. And we'll be talking about more media and branding in this presentation.
Asenia, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm Asenia. I'm the outreach director for Team 4087.
Okay, so we're gonna get started. How this is gonna work is we're gonna do our outreach presentation, then we'll have time for questions, and then Madeline is going to do the media presentation, and then we'll have time for questions for media. So let's get started. So this is just kind of a basic definition of outreach. So outreach is basically providing services for a population and serving their needs. Outreach and first is defined a little bit differently, although you're still serving the needs of your community. It can be a wide range of different things.
Okay, so we've included the quote by Dean Keenan, which basically kind of sums up that outreach is more than robots, you know? It's basically a way for students to develop important skills that they're going to need in the future and just, you know, what to expect, you know, in the first world. So basically, we've kind of summarize outreach into 3 main points. 1, inspiring technology leaders and innovators, which basically just means, you know, inspiring youth, you know, the future leaders of the world. Secondly, promoting sustainability, which just means like organizing your outreach team in a way that's gonna last in the future. And also reaching a target audience. This is probably one of the most important points of outreach. Basically just having like a set goal, like who you want to reach, you know? Amy,
okay, so yes.
Add any more?
Yeah, so no, I think that that's a good definition. Those 3 key points are very crucial to first outreach. And knowing basically how you want to do outreach in the first community as well as in your community. So I think those are important 3 steps to remember.
So another important thing you want to cover is, why is outreach important? So this might seem like a silly question, but basically, outreach is really essential for creating community connections and just getting involved within your local community. It's a great way to get your team name out there. It also inspires and motivates volunteers because they're able to see their impact within their own community. And this is through either mentorship, community classes, and like workshops that we're doing right here. Our members are also able to gain a lot of soft skills through outreach, such as presentation and speaking, as well as just basic communication skills. I'm sorry. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Am I still cutting out?
No, we can hear you.
Yeah, hear you fine.
Okay, awesome, sorry. Okay, another important reason to have outreach is also for award submissions like chairman. It's a great way to just develop and show like what you're doing in your own community and how your own team is just helping others and spreading STEM. You can go to the next slide.
So outreach looks a bit different in different sections. So there's the first community, there's your local community, there's your school community, and then there's international and nationwide. So right now we're going to be focusing on the first community and what that looks like, and defining the definitions of mentorship and assistance. We'll be sending out some materials after this about how FIRST actually defines those things. But what does mentorship look like? If you're mentoring another team, that means that you've been helping them long term. It might mean that you reactivated them and you are helping them with different resources. You're helping them just guide them through the network of FIRST. You might be providing them a area where they can work, and you might be helping them for 5 years or something like that. So mentorship is long-term. It means that you constantly stay in communication with that team. And it's something that a lot of more well-established teams like Team Spider are doing a lot of mentorship long-term. And then assistance, rather than mentorship, is more short-term. That's something like we're doing right now. This is assistance with other teams. We're giving a presentation. It's a workshop. It's maybe answering some email questions that another team will send you to get them on track. It might be providing a team with some tools to work with or materials. So assistance is something that's not as substantial, but it is also very important because we're FIRST community and we help each other out. On the right side, you'll see some of the FIRST community outreach that we've done as a team, Team 4087. Some of these teams are thriving right now, and we had a hand in that. We reactivated a team. We've been mentoring 3 teams, and we've assisted in all of them. So that's just a little graphic and showing like basically how you can track that data. So what does community outreach look like? There's a lot of different things you can do with community outreach. And one of the biggest questions is basically, how do you get involved in your community? How do you actually do the outreach you want to do? So there are 2 areas where community outreach exists. That's your school and that's your local area. So school outreach is a great recruitment tool. That's how we get most of our members and how many teams get their members if they are school affiliated, meaning that their school is basically the space where they work and the space where their members are from. Some teams are homeschool teams that combine together. Other teams are affiliated with not a school, but maybe an organization. So this is an area where you can utilize the students and basically use them as a recruitment tool to gain more members. And you can also just promote FIRST and promote STEM within your school community by basically demoing at different events and making sure that you're actually involved in your school community, because that's the way that your school can recognize that you guys are doing a lot of great work. And you can also promote FIRST that way. So your school might have many different events that you can present at. Our school has just a few: open house, our welcome night, our snowball social, which at all of these events we get to demo our robot and we get to talk about what opportunities you can have if you're on our team. So local community outreach looks a bit different. And one thing that you have to make sure that you take into account when doing local outreach is that you must take the initiative. That means that you have to be networking. That means that you have to be seeking out businesses, seeking out organizations, seeking out fairs, and making sure you have your place in those spaces, because people usually won't reach out to you unless you're well known. So that's one way to get your team to be well known, is actually seeking people out. And engaging in the local community is a really, really great thing. And it's also basically another section of FIRST. FIRST isn't just about robots. FIRST isn't just about gaining engineering skills. It's also about spreading the world of STEM. So being able to create new opportunities for your local area is also important. So Our local area has a lot of STEM opportunities with like electrical work, or we're really, because we're in New Orleans, we're really big on the petroleum industry and medical. So what do we do to basically create new opportunities for students? You can see on the right side, this is something that we run, it's called Gateway. It's for underserved schools and 8th graders, where they can come and program these VEX robots and also learn about coding. So that's one thing that we've done to provide a new opportunity that isn't available in our area.
Okay, so this is sort of like a newer form of outreach that most of us aren't as familiar with, but basically we wanted to include virtual outreach just to address the issue with COVID-19 and, you know, how we're specifically like handling these challenges. So we've kind of separated them into 2 basic categories. You have informative, which are like workshops like these, like simple lectures and presentations where, you know, you're just trying to spread information and teach people something. And there's also interactive forms of virtual outreach, like at-home activities and coding, like online games that are more like hands-on and really get people engaged. So this is actually, we've been trying to take advantage of virtual outreach for the main reason that it allows us to reach people nation and even worldwide. Like we said, we've even been in contact with like FRC teams in Libya, which is just really like, it's wild. But we're able to have a larger reach through virtual outreach, which gives us a chance to have more of an impact. And also it's clearly safe and more sanitary. So we've included pictures of like, we're hosting public CAD classes in the corner. And I also included a picture of our SweNext chapter. They're hosting like virtual challenges through YouTube that like the local youth can participate in. So we also wanted to address outreach like within your own team. So we usually host like at the end of the summer, we'll host potlucks and swim parties to kind of start the build season. We'll also have like video game parties to really get our team engaged and, you know, just check up on our team members and try and get our team connected and working together to begin the build season. We also like to stay connected with our past alumni, whether that be through our data collection and also just like showing pride for our alumni. We're also trying to start a newsletter to engage parents and alumni and also our sponsors to kind of keep up our connections with them and make sure, you know, they feel involved in our community. We also like to spread STEM within our team through STEM challenges.
And just touching on the STEM challenges idea, something that I think is really important just to like start off the school year. Like, yeah, we do potlucks and everything as more of just a welcoming thing, getting everyone situated and comfortable on the team. But the STEM challenges, I think, are also really important because if you start off your year with maybe doing like build a bridge or I'm sure you guys have all done like an egg drop challenge or something like that. It builds teamwork across different grades. So if you're a freshman coming in on the team, you might be able to work with a junior or a senior, and that just puts everyone more on a level playing field and makes everyone feel a bit more connected, and they'll build their team working skills that way as well.
So we also wanted to talk a little bit about our specific sub-team structure. Of course, this will be different for every team, but we've kind of reorganized our team structure a lot this past summer, or this past year even. So as of now, our sub-team structure consists of an outreach director, which is myself, So my basic responsibilities are just coordinating events like these workshops, and as well as establishing and like maintaining outreach opportunities like Amy's talking about within like our local community and just community outreach in general. So under the director are our specific program managers. As you can see, we have specific managers for like our FLL program, our Gateway program, and just other specific programs that we might plan in the future. So the responsibilities of those managers are basically just to organize and execute their assigned outreach program. And then we'll have like a pool of outreach specialists, or just basically like students, who just provide help with planning and like basic assistance.
And the main reason why you should have some type of structure with outreach is because when you start getting involved in doing community events, since that's outside of your school or outside of your team, it can be harder to communicate with people. And having this type of structure, or having a structure like it, where you have people that are in charge of specific tasks, allow you to be able to communicate more effectively and have someone to go to if an event needs to be coordinated. And it also gives students leadership skills and networking skills because they learn how to effectively communicate with professionals. They learn how to effectively communicate with their local community, and they gain the soft skills that you need for engineering. So what does outreach look like at competition? We have a couple of different points here, but the biggest thing I think we need to touch on is having some type of visual. So on our right side, you can see on the bottom picture, that's our newest outreach board. That's something that we hang in the pit. And that's something that judges can come by and ask us about, or other teams can come by and ask us about just a little bit more about our outreach. And then above that, you see our previous year, we had a puzzle piece theme where we had our outreach and our statistics. So at competition, outreach doesn't stop because you need to always be trying to improve how your team does outreach. So the director, which would be a senior, would have basically all of the knowledge about the different outreach events that you've done. A great thing to do to be able to keep track of the statistics, as well as keep track of just the measurable impact and the explanations of why you have done such outreach events, is having an outreach binder. Basically what that would look like, it would be pages and pages of basically statistics, pictures, as well as little write-ups about what the outreach event was actually about and what you did. And in that outreach binder, you would be able to maybe print that out, put it in an actual binder or a folder, and then bring that to competition with you, or to presentations with you, to be able to have something that you can pull out and show people. And if another team comes and asks you about your outreach, you can point them to something. The managers would be basically the scouts. Something that we do at competition, which I believe is extremely helpful, is talking with other teams. So that way you can gain a lot of knowledge about what your team can be doing more of and what you can be better at. So one thing that we realized after talking with people last year at competition was that we weren't doing enough of creating new opportunities. We were basically just existing in the opportunities that we had at local fairs or within our school. So that's where Gateway came about, and we were able to implement that and serve the underserved communities, the underserved 8th graders in our community. And that's something that you can do, basically scout out. You can go to different teams, talk with whoever's in charge of outreach or whoever's willing to talk with you about the outreach that they do. And maybe if it looks a bit different than yours, take notes, and you can reflect back on that. The last thing, the specialists, they can help the media team and the managers with scouting. But the media team, which I'm sure Madeline will talk about a little bit later, would probably be taking pictures and things like that. So in order to do outreach, you should be able to say, this is, like you can see in these pictures exactly what we were doing. So those specialists can help take pictures and make sure to document what's going on. Okay, so networking, STEM professionals. This is very important because mentors are very, very important to your team, making sure that your team stays sustainable. What networking could look like is multiple different things. The largest or the more, I guess, chosen networking opportunity is presenting at different organizations or different companies in your community. What this could look like, and you can see that in the picture on the bottom. We went to Lockheed Martin and we talked with them about getting some mentors for our team and for mentors of other first teams in general in our area. And also the possibility of getting a sponsorship, a monetary sponsorship through that company. You can also go through your FRC coordinator. One thing that we do each year is we present at the company interlocks along with an FTC team where we can gain mentors that way. And the regional FRC coordinator will be able to talk with the mentors who are willing to go with a team and basically set them up easily. So there's a professional that knows basically the channels the mentor needs to go through or the channels the companies need to go through in order to be placed at a first team. And networking can involve more than STEM professionals. So those STEM professionals could be people that help out with mechanical work, electrical work, programming, etc. But you also need professionals that would be willing to help you with media, with outreach, with business, with your branding, making sure that those teams also have the support of an adult and the support of someone who has been in that industry before. We always have someone that helps us out with chairmans and someone that helps us out with media. So yes, so industry professionals can be potential mentors. They can help maybe pair some people up with internships. Bernard over there, you can see in the corner with Mr. English, our lead mentor. He was able to get an internship with one of the people that sponsor us. They can also provide things like facility tours that can be very educational and also allow members to explore their very interests. So what mentorship looks like, you have 3 different types of mentorship. There's low time commitment, medium time commitment, and high time commitment. And these can look a bit different. I'm not going to read all the bullet points, obviously. We'll send this presentation out to you guys and you can go back through anything you'd like, but low time commitment are people that basically help with events and they volunteer and they come every so often. They might help with email questions and things like that. They might help you connect with other companies as well. Medium time commitment maybe comes a few times a week. They are more accessible than low time commitment, but they're not always there. Mr. English is an example of a high time commitment mentor. He is always with our team almost every single day. He does work outside of meetings to help us with CAD training, to help us with prototyping, to help us with networking. And he's basically constantly helping out the team. So those are just some examples of what a mentor can look like and what you should be looking for in terms of outreach with networking and trying to gain mentors. So we're going to open it up to questions and then we'll move on to the media section. Does anyone have questions? You can just put them in the chat or just honestly just go ahead and speak up. No one? Okay. Well, some things that we didn't totally cover in there, I guess we'll provide you with a question and the answer. One thing that is also important is making sure that you have some way to track your data. So outreach is important because you get to like express like how much you enjoy being in your community. You get to help people out and all these different things. But in order to make sure you're doing effective outreach, you need to figure out a way to basically calculate your measurable impact. And what that may look like is having some type of data spreadsheet or some type of document to fill out after each outreach event, saying maybe there are this many members, there are this many volunteers, there are this many people who came, basically what your team did. And also always try to give a follow-up survey if you can, because that's a way for your team to know that you had some type of impact. See, if you just host an event and then you just leave it at that, you can't really know if people took anything away from it. So it's important to make sure that you have some type of follow-up survey or something in place to make sure that you're getting feedback about how you can improve your events and your team research. And what we have right now is a spreadsheet where we document all of our statistics and all of our data. And we're going to be implementing some type of documentation for each outreach event to make it easier on us. So yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty similar to what we do. We kind of just keep a chart with all of our outreach events, and then we do these things called one-pagers. At the end of every outreach event, we go back to the shop and we include like one page, like the name states, with pictures and a description of what we did at the outreach event.
And that's something, those one-pagers, where you could put in an outreach binder and use that, right? Use that for competition or whatever you want to use it for.
So when a competition rolls around, we normally have this giant like 5-inch binder with all of our documentation.
Which is very important, especially if you're going for any type of award. They want to see that you're trying to do more to better your community, to better FIRST, to spread STEM, because that's what FIRST is about, right? So I guess another question could be, how do you basically interact within a sub-team of outreach members? So like we talked about how it could maybe be a bit chaotic doing outreach. But I think another thing to mention would be that making sure that you have some type of structure in the way that you run your outreach section. Some teams bundle all together outreach, business, awards, media, and all of that stuff. And those four together may seem similar, but there are specific things that each require. And it would be very important for you to kind of map out what a structure looks like. And communication is key. I'm sure everyone has heard that. Communication is very important when doing outreach events, because first off, you want to come off as professional and also well-equipped and well-structured to other members of your community. But you also want to make sure that you put structures in place to gather resources and gather data after each outreach event in order to make sure that you're having some type of impact. Asinia, do you have any other questions that you want to add on?
I think I would personally like to ask, like, maybe, what do you think what are the bigger mistakes that some beginner outreach teams might make, like, if they try and get started? Or maybe some of the we can talk about some of the challenges that we faced as an outreach team.
Okay, I think that's a good question. Regarding our challenges that we face, I think the biggest challenge is recruitment, because a lot of large majority of our team is on the technical side. So that's like mechanical, that's electrical and programming. So we often find ourselves not having enough people to be able to run an event effectively or efficiently. So I think that's just one thing that your team itself needs to work on, making sure that you prioritize outreach. And one way that we have done that this year is requiring everyone to have a certain amount of volunteer hours during outreach events. Just making sure that everyone understands the importance of outreach and making sure that everyone's in the loop, basically, because that can also be a problem. Well, I talked about communication. Some people may realize that they're not in the loop about outreach, and they may not even know that it's going on. So that's important. And I think the last mistake would probably be spending too much time thinking of unrealistic ideas, I guess, because our team has bounced back from a lot of basically unstable situations. And I think that we often spent our time trying to figure out how we could do the most outlandish thing, or trying to come out with these crazy opportunities, but we weren't focusing on our community. We weren't focusing on our local community, which was detrimental for us because we didn't make any of those connections. So I think it's important to first focus on what your community needs and meet their needs, and then start spreading out further. So that means like communicating with your community, and then you can go out to a larger network within your state, within the nation, international. Like, we haven't gone international, but I know Team Spider has done a lot of international work.
Yeah, we have. We're as of last season, we've been working with a bunch of first global teams, like in Paraguay, Benin, Togo, in Kosovo, and then we're going to be doing some more global outreaches next year.
I don't think, unless anyone else has questions about like how we do things, or just in general about outreach, we can move on to media.
I do have a comment about outreach. I feel like if you're a rookie team, or if your team doesn't like really get ready to do a lot of outreach, just getting started and doing a lot of outreach in your community is, like, in general, it's like a really great gateway, because normally once you get started and once people start seeing you at outreach events, your team tends to get invited to more outreach events. And that's like a pattern that I saw with our team. After we started, I guess, increasing the number of outreach events that we attended, we started seeing more like companies and I guess events asking us to come and demo at their events or at their building. And in general, we were able to increase our outreach even more.
And that's a great way to network as well. Like, if you're a rookie team and you don't necessarily have many connections with companies or organizations, if you do attend as many outreach events as you can, if you have the resources for that, then that's a good networking tool. You can get in contact with organizations and communities that can, companies that can help you out, basically get more funds and more resources. And then you can do even more outreach and even more with your robot.
Exactly.
Okay, let's move on.
So I guess we're going to be talking a little bit about media and branding now, and the means of mass communication and making your team distinct from others. So a little introduction. My name is Madeline Nguyen. I'm an up-and-coming junior in high school, and I'm from Team Spider 1622. My position, I'm the Chief Products Officer / VP Robot. I basically oversee everything that has to do with the robot. This is my 6th year in First Robotics and my 4th year on an FRC team. I was the previous VP of Public Relations, which basically oversaw all of our outreach and mentoring and all that type of stuff. I'm a first technical ambassador. I was a chairman's presenter for this last year when we won chairman's at the Del Mar Regional, and I'm a first Dean's List winner for this last year. So about branding, when it comes to branding, it's super important that your team has a marketing plan, and make sure your marketing plan is tied to your team vision, mission, and goal. Now, what is a vision, mission, and goal? It's basically what your team stands for and really what they, I guess, what you want for the future. Like, I think I could pull up our vision, mission, and goal. I think I have it myself. Okay, yeah. So our vision is a generation of leaders prepared to inspire global change through STEM education. And our mission is transforming our community locally and globally by promoting STEM diversity, especially for the underserved and disadvantaged. So we change our vision, mission, and goal about every 5 years, just to kind of like update it with what we're doing with the times, I guess. So it's super important. We basically tie everything that our team does to our vision, mission, and goal. So if your team doesn't already have a vision, mission, and goal, we highly recommend that you have one or come up with one. Now, your marketing plan should also include target funding goals and make sure that's transparent so everyone on the team is aware of what's happening with the budget, branding, and marketing. It's also important that all members are part of the team branding. Not only should you use your design process on your robot, which is like problem solution and stuff like that, you should also use it to come up with a marketing plan. Now, when it comes to standards, logos, and trademarks, it's important that they have a unifying thematic visuals that tie to all aspects of the team. And your team branding should be consistent throughout your entire team and everything your team produces, which would be like handouts, your robot, stuff like that. And ideally, your team can come up with a document that has all of your team's individual branding standards. Some of the things that we put in our branding standards or brandards are commonly used fonts, exact hex codes for colors, and what changes you can make to the logos and what you can't change. Like we always have our main logo, which is the spider and Team Spider 1622, but every year on like our t-shirts and stuff, we always like slightly change it to match like that year's theme. And both virtually and in person, from your team's website, social media, to documentation, email signatures, and handouts, your branding and your branding standards should just be consistent. So next slide. So when it comes to communication, it's essential to include your team's branding, especially when it comes to communicating with sponsors, judges, other teams, and at outreach events. It helps make your team more recognizable, familiar, and memorable. And ways our team uses brandings in communication are logo design, business cards, team shirts and uniforms, drive team uniforms, kit design, handouts and brochures, and buttons. Your team's branding will also make a big impact on people's impression of your team. So it's important to look professional and put together. And the easiest way to do that is have a clean team image. And in the past, many people have actually recognized us from our team number to our branding. So just in general, looking professional and put together is a really good thing. So next slide. So with logo design, it's important to have multiple variations of your team's basic logo. Not only should your logo be able to shrink for smaller things like buttons and expand for bigger things like banners. Here you can see the different variations of our main logo. It's also good to make sure you're using the right variation of your team logo for the right job. For buttons, it should be small and simple so it's easy to recognize and see. Now normally on our buttons, we use that corner spider logo, that's just the spider. And then for bigger things like banners, you could have a more intricate and busy logo. Also having multiple logos for different aspects of your team. We have our safety logo, which incorporates our main spider logo, which you'll see in later slides. Now for our logo design, we mainly use the Adobe suite, but more specifically Illustrator and Photoshop. When it came to logo design, we really wanted to have clean colors and an easily recognizable design, which is why we went with the colors black and white. It's good to have team colors that really complement each other and are easy to read on top of each other. Having colors that aren't too bright but not too subtle. We wanted to somewhat include our school colors as well, which are green, gray, white, and black. I also highly recommend that every team has their own monochrome version of their logo when you need to put your logo on something with one color. Our colors on our logo are also interchangeable, which is nice for papers and other things with a white background. This isn't mandatory, but it's a good thing to keep in mind when coming up with your team's logo. On our logo, you can also see we have many sharp lines and a unique design, so it's easy to recognize and remember. For the majority of our team logos, we have our team number because that's another way people can remember and recognize our branding. Having a logo that's not too complicated but not too simple is very important. And remember, this logo will be seen on basically everything that has to do with your team. So whenever we produce something new or just in general when we're producing mass quantities of something, we always make sure to have our logo, whether it's small or easy to see. Even with this presentation, you can see we put our logo in the corner. So next slide. So when it comes to business cards, it's important to include coaches, student leadership. So if anyone is interested in speaking to a specific sub-team, they know exactly who to contact. It's important to include your team logo, but also keeping the business card clean and easy to read. In the past, we've also had our vision and mission on them. We get new business cards every year to update student leadership. We hand out business cards basically to everyone we want to stay in contact with and to whoever wants to contact us. Also including your team's website and social media on the business card is a good idea. Majority of our coaches and team leads carry business cards on them. Now for like outreach events, we also like to leave our, like if we have a table, we like to leave our business cards on the table so people can just grab them if they're just walking by. And in the past, we've also been able to pick up sponsors by just giving them our business card and telling them a little bit about what we do. Sometimes we'll run into them at different events. And it's just really easy to say, hey, we're Team Spider, we do robotics, here's our business card if you want to contact us, and yada, yada, yada. So just in general, like business cards seem kind of old fashioned, but they're really, I guess, useful depending on the time if you just easily need to give someone your contact information. Um, so just in general, it's a good thing to have. Next slide. For team shirts and uniforms, we have to have thematic designs that tie to this year's or to the year's specific theme. It's important to remember who will be wearing these shirts and who will see them. And if you're wondering, the shirts that you see on the screen, those are from 2018 for Power Up. People should be able to recognize your team from far away and easily see your team logo. On the back of our shirts, we also like to include our sponsors and the school that we're affiliated with. We like to keep our shirts clean and simple with not too many logos and designs on them. We've also had hoodies and jackets that include our team number down the sleeve and the first logo down the other sleeve. On our team polos, we only have the embroidered team logo on the heart. We do this so that it has a clean look that is simple and professional. For our chairman's presenting, we actually have them wear formal wear or like professional wear, like a black blazer and like a white shirt underneath, just so that it looks more professional and clean. And we always have them wearing like our team button, so at least there's one logo on there. Sometimes we do seasonal merch, like 2 years ago, for example, we did Christmas sweaters, which was really cool. For events that we host, like First League qualifiers and international events like the robotics competition that we hosted in Paraguay last year, we did staff shirts that all of the volunteers wore just to kind of differentiate from like the people attending the event. And many times we also have volunteers from other teams and parents, so we can't necessarily have everyone wearing our own team shirts. So that's why we do staff shirts. And we've also made shirts for our summer camps and even teams and programs we're affiliated with, like the Poway Engineering Academy, which we're very affiliated with since at our school. We did shirts for them, and then it has our logo on the back of it as well. So you can go to the next slide. So our team uniform is worn by our drive team. Every year we like to come up with themed drive suits to make our drive team more recognizable and unique. Not only are our drive team costumes super visibly really cool, but also we make sure that they're useful. Like they have tons of pockets to hold everything the drivers may need, like tools and wires and maybe cords for the driver station. Many times we also like to have like cool Easter eggs on our costume as well. This last year we had on the sleeve we had the name of a Star Wars pilot, on a different name of the Star Wars pilot on every suit, which was super cool. Last year's was the one on the left, it's the black and white one, and then in 2018, those are our drive costumes on the right for Power Up. And basically on our costumes, we also included our safety patch and motto. So this last year, our safety motto was, "Safety is not negotiable." It was kind of passive aggressive, but it was pretty cool. And then we also have a safety patch. Now these costumes are easy to put on. They just go over your clothes and then it's just like a zip up. So it's at a moment's notice, the team can change drivers if needed. And all of our costumes are DIY and made by hand. Normally we buy basic jumpsuits and we add vinyl decals and patches with our team logo and number. And normally they're pretty like cost effective. I know this last year we kept every costume under like $15, which is really great. But I guess in general, we already had a rider cutter, so that's something that we kind of invested in a few years ago. But they're normally pretty cost efficient and they always look pretty cool, I think. Next slide. So for branding on the robot, many teams like to powder coat their robot parts with their team colors. That's a great way to brand your robot to reflect your team. So we like to basically have plastic panels on our robot, as you can see, with vinyl decals. So they're clean looking and they have a logo, webs, and sponsors. We use Velcro to attach them to the robot so that we can easily just take them off if we need to access anything on the inside of our robot, which many times we do just to fix something on the inside. And our robots are easily recognizable from the field, which is great because many times scouters have a difficult time like noticing robots on the field. So by having our big panels that have really thick font, they're easy to recognize for scouts. And also we like to take pictures of our robot on the field, so it's also very easy recognizable. Now, for those who can't access powder coating, having plastic panels is a great option that's affordable, and just in general, powder coating takes like a few days. And if you just don't have that time during build season, plastic panels is a great alternative. Next slide. For pit design, it's important to have your team logo big and recognizable from a distance. As you can see, our pit is easily recognizable from our large logo and webs that are visible from basically every angle. For our pit, we also specifically made sure that it could condense down to just one tote to travel with anywhere. And for us, we went to 5 regionals back in 2019, so that was super important to be able to travel light and just easily put it up and stuff. Now, not only that, but you could also transform it to a half pit. So we made our pit out of 80/20, which is like a kind of a lightweight metal that's also super strong and can be taken apart and has many different like attachments and stuff. So we're able to turn into a half pit or even like a 3/4 pit if we need to. Because I know in past outreach events we needed to have like we can't take up as much space as we normally can at a competition. So we're able to transform it to like a half pit. Just so it takes up less space and it's super convenient. No, go back to the last one, not again. So it's also important that the pit can function as multiple things. It should be ready to basically repair the robot at a moment's notice. It should be a place that you can talk to judges and almost kind of act like a home base for the team. And we also make sure that our pit takes up minimal space. It's super thin, and it can store all of our totes and tools very discreetly. So it just all packs down and folds underneath the table. So next slide. So something that we also like to make sure, or that we also like to make are handouts, brochures, announcements, newsletters, and etc. So we like to send these out to our school district, parents, and sponsors, and use them for presenting to judges and handing out in competition. And like Amy said earlier, this is like a document that shows a lot of our outreach and Sherman stuff. It's an easy way to convey lots of information to many people. And it's also important to include logos, graphics, and good formatting, so it's easy to read and understand. In the past, we were also able to use these documents to look back on what the team has done in previous years, almost like documentation. So after like every large event, we always do like a newsletter, as you can see on the right, that basically describes everything that happened, like how well we did, and stuff like that. And we always send that out to our school district and to the school faculty and post on their social media. So it kind of is like a brief summary of everything that happened. This one is from, I think that the one you see is from 2018 from the San Diego Regional one. We won the Engineering Inspiration Award. So it's just super easy just to tell, I guess, people that we're close with what exactly is happening, especially if they can't attend their competitions or they can't necessarily watch live streams and stuff. It's just really easy to tell them what happened. Next slide. So on our social media, we like to post and announce events, important dates, and anything else our team is up to. We use social media as a way to stay connected with our community. And we also use social media as a way to appreciate our sponsors and mentors. In the past, we've also done senior shoutouts and highlights of the teams that we mentor as well. Social media is a great way to keep parents and sponsors updated on what your team is doing. We also use social media to stay connected with other teams that we meet at competition and outreach events. We like to use Instagram as another way for people to contact us with questions. So whenever we're at an outreach event or something and they may not be able to like email us or anything or call us, we just tell them, if you have Instagram, just DM us on Instagram and we'll respond. And we're pretty active on our social media accounts. So some examples of the social media platforms that we use are Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, Snapchat, and YouTube. YouTube for like our chairman video and stuff like that. Now it's important to remember that your social media represents your team. So it's important to be professional and family friendly and just in general, just having a clean look to them. And like I said earlier, we always post like, our newsletters and flyers and stuff like that on our social media. So next slide. So on our website, we like to update it every year with thematic visuals. Now, what thematic visuals are just like, I guess, theming that goes according with that year's game. So you can see on this screenshot, we have like these little decals in the corners that kind of represent the Infinite Recharge, and it also matches their shirt, if you could see. It's kind of hard to see, but we went with like an eclipse design, kind of for Infinite Recharge. So on the website, we include pictures of the team and information about what our team does and what First is. Now, we've also included some of the magazines and articles we've been featured in, and on top of that, we include a calendar with all the events Team Spider will be participating in. And that's helpful not only for our own team members to understand what's happening, but also for sponsors, parents, and like people who want to see us at events. And then we also have information about for our sponsors. So if someone wants to sponsor us, we have information about how they could contact us. The different tiers. We have like a tier list for like if you sponsor us at $2,000, you're considered a bronze tier, and so on like that. It also includes what happens if you do sponsor a team, like you get featured on our t-shirts, website, social media, stuff like that. And then we also have stuff about the events that we host and compete in, like FRC, FTC, First Global, First Lego League, that type of stuff. And then we also have a section about our Women in STEM stuff that talks about what we do for women in STEM and our Screen Next Club. Now, all of this can be seen on teamspider.org if you want to check that out after the presentation. So you can go to the next slide. So for buttons, we like to have thematic visuals. You're going to hear thematic visuals a lot based on the year. So these buttons are on that are on the slide are from 2018 for Power Up. We went with an old-fashioned video game theming, and we also have our basic safety and basic logo buttons that we use for in-between season, and when we're specifically promoting our safety. And it's important to have an easily recognizable button that's plain and simple. And we like to change it every year just so that it's like a little bit different and it's kind of like a collectible. Because if it's like the same thing every year, then people won't want to like pick up more buttons. And personally, I really like having the different buttons every year. I think it's super cool, and I kind of like collect all of them to kind of represent every year I was on the team, which I think is super cool. So next slide. So we like to have fun with our team's branding, and we like to do alliance awards, senior gifts, mentor gifts, and other fun next to hand out during competition and our outreach events. And some of the fun things we've done before are posters, watches, magnets, awards, name tags, and banners. And it doesn't say on the slide, but this last year for safety, we also did scrunchies, which is super cool. So we like to give out things that highlight certain aspects of our team. Last year, we made coloring books, stickers, and even challenge coins that were all made to promote our team safety. Now, team branding isn't just the things that you hand out, but also how people see your team. Now, we have our spider mascot and a fire extinguisher costume that you can also see at almost all of our competitions in the stand or walking around in the pits. Now, the most important thing to remember about branding is to have fun with it and keep it consistent throughout your entire team and everything your team does. Next slide. So thank you so much for listening. If you want to contact Team Spider, our Instagram is @spider1622, and our Women in Engineering Instagram is PHS_SweNext. And then our website is www.teamspider.org. Next slide. So if you have any questions, feel free to ask in the chat, or just, I guess, you can unmute yourself and ask too. So I guess I could answer some questions that we do get asked sometimes. So a common question that we get a lot is, how has our team's branding changed since the team was first founded? So that's actually kind of a funny story. The very first year that our team was ever a team, which was back in 2005, we actually used there's a paintball company also called Team Spider, so we actually used their logo, and then we got kind of like a passive aggressive letter from them saying that if you don't change it, we're gonna sue. So that's when we changed their logo. And over the years, our logo has stayed pretty similar, but there's been some slight changes, just like by fonts and stuff like that. Now, there are many teams that go through large branding changes. They just like completely change their colors, or they completely have a new logo, which is perfectly fine, but it's important that to not change it too much. You want to at least keep it for a few years so it's recognizable and people can easily remember it. Now, some other questions that we get is, who does all of our graphics and media? We have an imagery and spirit team. It's one of the sub-teams on our team, and they basically manage all of our graphics. You know, whenever we do documentation, they do all of the border and formatting, all of our logos, t-shirts. They manage our website, buttons, and stuff like that. And then another question we get asked is, for buttons, where do we get our buttons from? Many teams order buttons, they just order mass quantities, but what we do is we make them all in-house. We invested in like some button makers a few years ago, and also a really big printer that prints out, they can print out like really big things like banners and posters, so we just print out little button I guess pictures, and we just cut them out and then we make them into buttons in-house. So if we needed to make custom buttons, that's super easy. And if we needed to make more buttons before regional, we can. So those are just some of the questions we get asked. But if there's any other questions.
I see Andrew says in the chat, when you take photos for competitions or events, how important do you think it is the quality and scenery of the picture taken?
Okay, I think the quality and scenery is pretty important. So when we have our media team at competitions taking photos, we always tell them if we're trying to take a picture of our team, make sure it's kind of narcissistic, but make sure our team's like in the middle and it's like the main highlight of the picture. And just in general for scenery, I guess I've never really been on the media team, but I know our media team does a great job of taking pictures of our robot or of our team with a background of like our pit or like of our banners and stuff like that. They're really really good with like sneaking our logo in the background somewhere in general. So yeah, I guess. And we always have multiple people taking pictures at competitions. So I guess we always tell them, take as many pictures as you can, and we'll go through and find the good ones. Because it's kind of hard to take, make sure every single picture is a good picture. So just taking a wide variety of pictures. And we always use that for the yearbook and stuff like that. Because our school, since we're a school club, we always get 2 pages in the yearbook, which is pretty cool. And we also sometimes have parents take photos as well. No problem. So I guess that's really it for branding and media.